Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fifth and final episode of Lost Dogs here. It's been a wild ride. 5 episodes covering the murders, missing cases, injuries of journalists, both in the United States and internationally. It's definitely been a wild ride here. Just for those of you who are unaware, we just want to stress that viewer discretion is advised. We will be covering sensitive topics here. These topics are not for the faint of heart and can be a little brutal here and there. So we will just start off by introducing ourselves. My name is John Hayes. I'll be a host and the lead on the discussion today. And we're joined by someone who's normally behind the scenes here. Introduce yourself.
My name is Alejandro Gonzalez. I usually run behind the scenes, but today I'm talking with you guys, joining you guys.
And I'm Dylan Rouse, back again.
Nice to have you both here. So let's just get right into this. So our fifth and final episode is going to be titled Killing the Messenger, kind of a play on words there. So the journalist we're focusing on today is going to be Chauncey Bailey. He was an American journalist based in Oakland, actually born there as well in October of 1949. His work mainly consisted of issues in the African American communities. He attended Hayward High School before he got his associate's degree from Merrit Community College in Oakland and earned his bachelor's degree in journalism from San Jose University. So he actually worked for 37 years as a journalist for big publications such as the Detroit News, the Oakland Tribune. He also dabbled in on-air news as a television reporter and hosted his own radio show before he finally landed a position as the editor-in-chief at the Oakland Post. So right where he was born, everything just kind of comes full circle, and his experience kind of culminates into this position that he's definitely always wanted, and he's been working towards his entire life.
I mean, 37 years as a journalist.
That is a lot of dedication and a lot of work.
Pretty much the same area.
Yeah.
Except for that spell in Detroit.
So during his career, Bailey actually wrote several different articles about the problems of something called Your Black Muslim Bakery. So a little bit of background on Your Black Muslim Bakery here. So it was founded by Yusuf Bey. It sold baked goods in accordance with the Quran in Santa Barbara in 1968. Bey named the business on the personal recommendation of his spiritual guide, Nation of Islam leader Elijah Muhammad. And Bey relocated to Oakland in 1971, with the headquarters being his San Pablo Avenue location. At its height in the mid-1990s, Your Black Muslim Bakery had 8 bakery outlets, so a pretty big business here. So the connection here, things began to unravel for Bey in the late 1990s. Accusations of physical and sexual abuse began to surface surrounding him. Bey ended up turning himself into the police in 2002 when a warrant was issued for his arrest, alleging him of 27 counts of rape involving underage girls, and Bey actually ended up dying of cancer in October of 2003 at the age of 67 while awaiting the first trial case there. So kind of the lead into that, we fast forward a bit. The Your Black Muslim Bakery is left to Bey's heirs, 2 of whom are killed in violent circumstances between 2004 and 2005. And one of those who actually ends up taking over his business is Yusuf Bey the Fourth. So he took over the business in 2005 and actually had to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy a year later. So a pretty big business change there and a pretty steep downfall, and we'll actually get to why that was in just a second. So getting back into Bailey's involvement with this, during his career, Bailey was investigating the business, Your Black Muslim Bakery, and feared there was corruption within it. He intended to expose those internal workings and the corruption, and he believed that the business also had financial connections in the community, so they were getting money illegally from other places and other dark outlets that they didn't want the public to know about, is what he believed. So some of these crimes included physical and sexual abuse, intimidation, welfare fraud, and murder. So Bailey was steadily working on a story about how the bakery was going under and how it was involved in all this crime. And this bakery was actually in debt for over $1 million, so he was really just trying to put all of that out there. So we get to August 2nd of 2007. Well, on his way to work, Bailey, a masked man dressed in black clothes, approaches him on a street in downtown Oakland. The man shoots Bailey multiple times at close range before fleeing on foot, and Oakland police pronounce Bailey dead at the scene. So once again, it's a case of this journalist was about to come forward with some pressing information and is ever so conveniently killed. So obviously this looks suspicious to a lot of people going forward. So when commenting on Bailey's death, one of his former editors at the Detroit News said, "Everyone's right to speak freely was assailed that day. It was truly an assault on the American way of life." And that coworker, in reading that article, he referenced an attack on the freedom of speech, an attack on the freedom of the press. So Bailey didn't get the chance to exercise those rights because that opportunity was taken away from him before he even had the chance. So, oddly enough, the day after the killing, the very next day, a man by the name of Devondre Brozard, a handyman and occasional cook at the Your Black Muslim bakery, confesses to killing Bailey on the spot. He states that he was angered by the story that Bailey was working on and wanted to prevent it from being published. His attorney actually later said that this confession that he was making this very next day may have been a forced confession. So someone may have been forcing him to make this confession. So fast forward to 2009, and whether it's a change of heart, which I doubt it, or having absolutely nothing left to lose, Brozard here then recounts his original confession. He says that Yusuf Bey IV, the leader of the bakery, ordered him to kill Bailey. So 2 years later, Bey and his accomplice by the name of Anthony Mackey is brought in on charges of ordering that assassination. Brozard testifies against them both in exchange for a light 25-year sentence, and they are both found guilty of first-degree murder and ordered to serve life without the possibility of parole. Police also ended up raiding the Your Black Muslim bakery, giving way to even more evidence of the criminal activities referenced earlier, so the sexual abuse, intimidation, welfare fraud, murder. They found a lot more information about those criminal acts there. So in 2009, Brozard told Amilda grand jury that he was ordered by Yusuf Bey IV, leader of the bakery, to kill Bailey. And in 2011, Bey and Mackey were brought in for planning the assassination of Bailey. Anthony Mackey was brought in on charges for being the accomplice. They're both forced to serve those life sentences, and we move on from there. So, since then, the Chauncey Bailey Project started in honor of Chauncey Bailey. Reporters and colleagues started the project in his honor to help answer questions about the death. I was reading a lot more about this, and they actually organized a pretty big effort in terms of getting this information out there and helping officials learn more and get more information as far as nudging them towards Yusuf Bey IV, because a lot of that information didn't originally point there originally, so it was really a big reporter effort to get that information out there. So the Chauncey Bailey Project's website actually states you can't kill a story by killing a journalist, which I thought was a very big, impactful quote and a really good thing to cap us off here. Like, you can't just stop the truth from coming out by killing someone whose job it is to report it. So in 2008, the project released a recording of Yusuf Bey IV describing the murder of Bailey, and he basically confesses and he says how he tricked investigators by pretending to not know anything, and basically self-incriminates himself.
That was a lot to take in.
That is a lot to take in.
I mean, wow, that is just a story. And did they end up ever publishing his story, Chauncey's story?
You see, that story itself was never published at all, which in itself is a tragedy, but I think that so much good came out of this other than that. Other than this loss of life, I feel like this case, unlike some of the previous ones we've covered on this show, was really an example of reporters, of humans coming together to get what they believe to be justice for this man and exposing this perceived to be terrible organization that was doing all these horrible things, and really honoring this guy's memory and making sure that this case does not go unsolved. It's not just one of those that's pushed to the back burner and forgotten about, or just another case of someone murdered and us not completely ever knowing what happened. We have closure here.
Mm-hmm.
Chauncey has closure, and I think that's a big impact going forward.
Yeah, I think the project really made the story popped up. I think actually the killing of Bailey made the story actually come out. I really doubt that if he was ever going to be published, like that story is gonna be published, like all of the information is not gonna be out there unless this would have happened. And I think it's really and I think it is a really good thing that the project actually like didn't got the story to be published, but it kind of like gave truth to the victims.
And that's I do agree with you there, but that's also unfortunate that a journalist has to die
of course.
in order for information to come out about an organization or a business that is doing these terrible things, you know?
Yeah, a racketeering group that runs out of bakeries. I mean, I agree with Alejandro. I mean, it probably wouldn't have grabbed as much attention, especially from authorities, if this reporter's life unfortunately hadn't been taken.
Yeah.
Yeah, because all of the business was discovered, all of the criminal activities, you said, physical, sexual abuse, intimidation, all of that was discovered. Plus, now we know who's behind that, and plus, we kind of like get some justice in some way.
And
but at the same time, it's sad.
There's just like such a mountain of evidence that seem to be piling on top of each other here, and the fact that this man lost his life just to potentially uncover something, not really to get to do it himself, for it to be done for him, it's just sad that this is the cost of the profession sometimes, this sacrifice.
He put in 37 years, was it?
Yeah.
As a journalist, and he's the most recent journalist killed here in America.
Yeah, up until this point, I think it was about I think it was like 3 or 4 decades before since a journalist had been killed domestically. So this was a really big case at the time and really shocked a lot of people because of like his past covering this business, covering your black Muslim bakery, and really his extensive research into them, and knowing that nothing really came out of that until after he was killed. I think that's what caused the outrage here, and that's what made these reporters and these people want justice for him, you know?
Yeah, like he was after some corruption for the bakery, but he didn't have any solid facts, or did he? While making the report, the journalist, did he have any facts that may have him involved with this criminal activity, may have him involved with his death?
I didn't see anything that like really incriminated like anyone here. he was really just trying to gather the information that he could, and unfortunately we'll never know exactly what he had that he planned on publishing, or whether or not he would even have been allowed to publish that information in the first place. It seems like whatever he had, it got him killed.
Yeah.
So the bakery obviously was scared of him uncovering something that they didn't want him to know, or maybe it was just his repeated attempts of trying to get this out, and they were just finally fed up with it and snapped and assassinated him, you know?
Well, it's crazy how is it Yusef Bey the fourth took over from his father at the bakery. He ordered some henchmen, obviously, just to kill a journalist to try to kill a story, but it ended up not really working like that. Do you think that by this point Chauncey had enough evidence against them that would actually bring on charges, or was it just more of a corruption story that they felt like they just
I'd
didn't
really,
want to get out?
I'd really like to hope so. Unfortunately, with this family, their history was a little bit jaded in the sense that they got away with a lot. I was reading a little bit more about Yusuf Bey the Fourth here, and there were actually allegations that he took trips out of the state and to foreign countries and to different states to get away with some of the crimes that he was committing, because he knew that the crimes that he was committing wouldn't be acceptable in association with the bakery. So some of these sex crimes, this abuse, these murder crimes, these charges against him that we'll never completely fully understand or have the grasp of. This family was really good at sneaking their way through a lot of these issues, and I think it really culminated with this death. This murder was something that they got in a little bit over their heads on, and once they got the ball rolling there, they didn't really think about the ramifications of what would happen and all the information that would come out and how ruthless everyone would be as far as getting answers here.
I just don't understand what would make you want to kill a journalist. I mean, how would you not think that would come back to bite you at all?
I think it's just that fear of information, like you really aren't thinking about it, like not even to try and sympathize with these murderers, because what they did is completely unacceptable and not okay to justify. But I really think that they were just afraid of the truth coming out. They did not want the truth to set them free in this case. They knew that the truth would land them behind bars, and it's just that unfortunate reality of we've been doing all these things that we know we shouldn't have been doing, and now the press is holding us responsible for these things, and we don't want them to, so we're going to take care of that. And that doesn't always work out for you in the case like this.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So, I mean, you mentioned earlier when you were explaining the story that a lot of people believed it was a infringement on the First Amendment and trying to silence journalists. We don't really have a huge problem with that here in America, besides like slap lawsuits and such like that. But, you know, do you think that this really was a attack on the First Amendment and freedom of press?
I really think it's a scary, like, it's kind of, I would describe it as like the most extreme alternative future that this path could go towards if journalists are suppressed and made to be silenced and quiet and not come forward with the information that they're presented when everyone knows that it's the truth. So it's just one of those harsh moments where we as a society look back at this case and these people witnessed in which things like this shouldn't happen, and we know it shouldn't happen, and here is this organization, here is this group that is allowing it to happen. And so we have to think to ourselves, how can we improve this? What can we do going forward? And how can we make sure that our press is protected? Because their job is to inform us, right? That's the end goal.
Yeah, honestly. Well, I don't have any more questions, Alejandro. Did you have any last points?
No one. I think they really tried to hurt the First Amendment by killing Chauncey, but I think it's a failed attempt. As we talked about recently, I think a really good closing note is that unfortunately he died, but thanks to this, all of this truth came out. So like it was an attempt to hurt the First Amendment, but it actually fortified it. I think it showed how strong the community can be, and it showed how the truth always wins in the end. I
Yeah.
think.
And I think that's a really resounding theme throughout this entire series, throughout these entire 5 episodes, and that's really why I pointed out the quote, "You can't kill a story by killing a journalist. The truth will always live on, regardless of if these journalists are murdered or they go missing or these unfortunate things happen to them and continue to happen to them every day as they continue to risk their lives and die just to inform the public. These truths, these stories live on. Truth will out. Truth always does come out, and I just think that's a really great part of the job, knowing that your responsibility is collecting the truth even at the risk of your life in some cases.
That was beautifully said, John.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I think that's about all we have time for now.
Yeah, this does conclude our last episode of Lost Dogs. We just want to thank you all for being a part of this with us, joining in on this journey with us. I myself, John Hayes, Dylan Rouse here, Alejandro Gonzalez, Austin Brown, Andrew Will back there, Christian Tabak. We have really enjoyed making this series with you all, and we look forward to touching base with you in the immediate future. Thank you.
Let's just do one next week. Yeah. No, let's do a 6. Come on. Let's go again this week.
Well, that's all the time that we have for today. Make sure to give us a follow on Twitter at Lost Dogs Pod, or like us on Facebook at Lost Dogs Podcast. And if you have any story ideas, be sure to send them to lostdogsok@gmail.com. That's it for this episode of Lost Dogs. We'll see you all next time.